Okay, the channel is live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adventure on so many levels. We're gonna play some Dungeons and Dragons.
Woo!
D&D.
I am Christiana Ellis, and I am the Dungeon Master. Our players tonight: Paul Fisher as Zinhorn Windborn, a Dragonborn cleric;
Good evening.
Jenny Meltzer as Zaleen, the Dark Elf Warlock cleric;
Hello.
Mark Kilfoyle as Vertigo, the Gnome Wizard Sorcerer. I almost forgot.
I should really figure out summon desk.
And Starla Hutchton as Carolina Swift, the Changeling Bard.
Hello, friends.
All right, so when last we left our heroes, they got woken up in the middle of the night. They had successfully escaped from the corporate headquarters here in Dinuthair, sensing behind the friendly face they had been offered and ulterior motives, and decided they needed to make themselves scarce. And so they escaped and found a place to hide, setting up their tower inside a magically created private sanctum. Now, perhaps through dumb luck or fate or something, someone running for their life happened across this hidden sanctum and was able to contact you all to help them because they were a member of a patrol from some organization that had been ambushed by what they called siphoners. And you went and fought some of these siphoners in order to rescue the rest of her patrol party. And we finished with you defeating the siphoners and healing, at least back to consciousness, the rest of her party. So, may I assume that the plan would be to go ahead and escort everybody back to the tower? Is that the idea?
Yes. Uh, does everyone agree with that? Go back to the tower and rest? Because, I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm almost out of spells.
And Buster can watch them.
That's true.
So, you are introduced to Stefan, who is a kind of a cool, maybe 30s, lean, non-binary sort. York, who is kind of stocky and excitable, and Trudelai, who seems to be the leader of the party in her 50s, or at least in appearance, right? Because of it's hard to say sometimes because everyone here seems to choose how they present themselves, but they are introduced. Greetings. They greet you. They are very grateful, but they are also still quite weak. There's some brief discussion that they are not yet able to contact the rest of their group because, due to the siphoners, they have been depleted of all of their magic for the day. So if you have a safe place to rest, they would certainly appreciate your hospitality, and thus, I believe we bring everybody back to the tower. And certainly, you can discuss any more discussions you would like before everybody settles back in, but you may also choose to go ahead and complete your long rest instead.
Are they all human?
Talk in the morning. Well, so that's the thing, is that as far as you understand, everyone here in Dinuthair is a changeling in the way that Carolina is, but you have not really seen them change around much. It seems like everyone has sort of chosen an identity, and they don't seem to change frequently. At least so far.
Do we know that? Because we know that Hestia was a changeling, or had the power to change her place, but Talitha and the others didn't seem to. Or Talitha,
well,
yeah.
so I guess if that
She
was
flashed a little bit out of her face.
yeah. So in case that wasn't clear, yes, they basically all are, but at the same time, it's the sort of thing that at least in the behavior you have observed so far, it's not something they change frequently. It's more like they have the ability to present themselves as they like, and that doesn't necessarily mean they change all the time as much as they can each sort of choose the identity that they want to put forward, and then they mostly stay that way. Which is not to say they couldn't, or that they don't sometimes change, but that's just what you have observed so far. But so
Okay.
certainly everyone is exhausted, really tired, eager for a safe place to rest and to hide. And you can discuss in the morning, or if you want to press for more before that, you may. But otherwise, let me know, and you can go ahead and complete your long rest.
Um,
I think it's better to wait until everyone's rested up.
yeah.
They
It's been a long
certainly
day.
they certainly consent to anything you might request, and as far as like making sure that they're watched, and that maybe like you have them all stay on that lower level or something like that. However you want to handle that.
Yep.
Well, in theory, how long did you say we had been asleep? Do you remember?
I think I said like 4 or 5 hours, and I would have said that this whole episode constituted a significant enough interruption, but you don't have to like start it over from scratch. You can, like we don't have to like make a big deal about like the specific number of hours unless you want to, because I figure
Well,
you'll
I
rest
was
until you're
actually
rested, right?
I was actually going to say, like, because I don't actually sleep,
Mm-hmm.
I could have gotten in my 4-hour meditation and could spend
Yeah.
the rest of that long rest, like, just sort of sitting there and watching over everybody
I
to
mean,
make sure
however
that
you
nothing
want
goes
to do
crazy.
it. Yeah, I mean, I think so. They need a long rest, right? But
Mhm.
however you want to handle watching them is up to you.
I'll do that then.
Okay. I'm gonna ask them to stay on the main level and
Mhm.
or the entry level and go upstairs with Buster full size and go to
So,
sleep
full size
as with
Buster
him as
has
my
to squeeze up the stairs,
okay.
but he will. He doesn't seem to mind, but he does have to squeeze. All right. I think he's kind of excited to be full size. He's kind of like, I think you sense a little bit of like incipient zoomy energy, except that there's not actually any room for him to do that when he's full size.
Right.
But he seems kind of excited by the novelty, because mostly you have him smaller when you're in the tower.
Okay.
But okay, so in any case, you can all resume your long rest, and I think Zaleen, as you're watching, they have their own sort of brief little conversations that mostly, Clements is the one who initially found you, is just telling the others how she came to run into all of you, and they all discuss that there's going to need to be a lot more conversation, but they seem persuaded that this is safe for the night, and so everyone turns in for the night. And so the rest of you, all four of you, are certainly going to be all rested up for your long rest before they will be. So you can just occupy yourselves or do anything you would like, but they're going to have a few more hours that they need to rest before they'll be rested up.
All right.
I mean, if you would like me to just go ahead and say, you wait for them to be all rested, that's fine. I'm just giving you the opportunity to talk about it before they're rested up if you want.
I'm okay with that. I got nothing else I want to do.
Yeah, I don't
mean,
really have anything.
Okay.
shouldn't we discuss how quickly we should not trust people?
That is kind of a good point that maybe don't tell them everything right away. You know, kind of we just had a pretty obnoxious experience with another group, so maybe be on
Yeah,
guard.
like not just, hey, yeah, we came from over there. Let's not say that right away.
Yeah.
Things like that.
You kind of implied that to Clements already, but you didn't discuss it in detail.
Yeah. Implied.
Yeah.
But I mean, that could mean anything. Like we came from another dimension.
Maybe we got here by accident.
Yeah. We
We
fell.
vertigo using the tablet and it sent us
Mhm.
somewhere else and it's a mess and
We're never going to get out of here. We're trapped. Although I don't think we presented ourselves as that at all. So that probably would not work.
Mm-mm.
Like, here's our business card.
Of course,
how
you're
we
going to
help
have to
everyone.
connect back up with Percival at some point, or else it's going to literally true that you're trapped.
Yeah,
We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
maybe.
All right. Well, so in any case, I think you can all have a morning where you're allowed to sleep in and rest a little bit. You can have kind of a slow morning. Maybe fix yourselves some breakfast on the kitchen level while everyone is still sleeping downstairs. What do you make for breakfast?
I would say bacon, but
I
don't-
think
I
with the
couldn't.
extra hours, I feel like Lynn would have been like in any off hours, like have been practicing their pastry making skills. because uh because I know how much Zaleen loves them. So doing my best. I'm not saying they're good. Working on it. Probably start off with something simple like a basic banana bread or something something relatively easy. But yeah.
So, Zaleen, are you basically like watching them continuously? Like you're making sure to not ever leave them unattended, or is it a little
No,
more
I mean,
casual than that?
it's a little more casual than that.
Okay.
Like I'll get up and move around and go look at the pastries and
Mm-hmm.
think about them and stuff.
right.
But like once everybody else is awake and everything and we're all like sort of moving around, I will
Mhm.
kind of leave them alone
Sure.
to rest.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, so I think that you've had kind of a, I'm imagining it's even though obviously you're still in kind of a potentially dangerous situation, broadly speaking. Probably feels nice to let yourself sleep in and wake up slow and putter around a little bit first before doing anything else. But I think as the food is starting to be ready and like smells and everyone is making a little bit more noise because you're awake, I think you kind of gradually become aware that you're hearing soft conversation from down below, that perhaps they're awake and talking amongst themselves.
Okay.
I'll eavesdrop.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah. So go ahead and make a perception check. You're doing it through the door, I would guess, from the hall. All right. Well, first make a stealth check. You rolled the perception already, but go ahead and make a stealth as well. All right. Okay. So I think what that you overhear a bit, where you hear the one, the older looking one, who was introduced to you as Trudelai, is saying something about Placer says we should find out what more they might be willing to take on, but otherwise, we need to be careful about what we let them know, just in case we, are not as aligned as we might hope. I also think I hear them coming on the stairs. So, hello?
Hello.
Uh,
Bumble and fall into the room. Oh, hi.
uh, good morning. And once again, thank you so much for offering us, the use of your incredible tower here as a safe place to rest. And of course, we owe you our lives for that rescue last night. We would have been done for without question if not for your intervention. And so, if there's anything we can do for you to express our gratitude, please let us know. We have so many questions about you, but I don't. Obviously, we're all in kind of dangerous times right now, so I guess let's talk about it.
I think that's a pretty good plan. But first, I hand them each a business card. I mean, Carolina got them made for us, so I
Yeah,
feel like it's
Clemens holds
required.
up the one that you gave that she got already. He's like, I got one, but yeah, like, I mean, if you have more, I mean, I can hand them out and stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Like, all right, you give her another couple.
hmm
Um, and so yeah, they kind of all look at them, and I think they're all kind of interested. It's like, huh, okay, yeah, these are pretty neat. And so True to Life says, I'm afraid we don't have business cards to offer in return. But I guess what we can tell you about us is that we are coming from a little group that has kind of set ourselves apart from the construct makers. That you sounds like you had some encounters with, and in fact, you were inside their headquarters, if I'm hearing right.
Yeah, they're a bunch of jerks, really. Like, very demanding. And I'm not sure that I didn't even remotely agree with. I'm their mission. Is that what? Like, I don't know.
Well,
We
you're
didn't really
getting
stay long enough to
smiles
find out.
and exchange looks from among their groups, like, well, you're certainly not going to get any argument from us on that score. I mean, I can only imagine what they told you about the rebellion, but probably that we're a bunch of terrorists, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Anarchists, didn't care about anybody, weren't organized.
Well,
Yeah, we just kind
the
of.
not organized part, unfortunately, is true. There are a lot of us, and if we were all on the same page, this would be a very different story. But alas, there's we have a number of different scattered groups with different agendas, and occasionally we can work together, but it is sometimes difficult. But um,
It's a complicated situation,
right.
so I can. You, there's not necessarily one right answer, so I don't know.
But so my group here, as Clements, I think, told you, we're on patrol, basically monitoring the headquarters there, and just looking for any other signs of danger that might be encroaching anywhere near, our area of operation. And we had no idea that siphoners had made their way this far into the hills. But obviously, we were wrong there, and we're taken by surprise, which, we were watching the headquarters really close, and then, yeah. But
Oh,
so we would absolutely be very interested to know anything you can tell us about what's inside that headquarters and what state it's in right now?
Well, that's a good question. We don't really know. Well, we don't
Yeah.
know the state of it now, but when we left it, I think one could best describe it as chaos.
I
And
mean,
mayhem.
we absolutely would like to know more about that. What do you mean?
Um,
I'm not really sure of all the arcane explanations of it. That would be, and just kind of point at Zinhorn and Vertigo. That's their I don't know.
um, so yeah, there's a thing that we use sometimes to extract nightmares out of people, and it's been very successful in the past. Uh, but when we tried it at the headquarters, it kind of went uh, like super mega ultra overdrive. It like a whole bunch of people just collapsed on the floor, and we were using it as a diversion to get out. We thought we would like pull the nightmare out of one of these guys, and they would have to fight it while we ran. And uh just like cloud formed and people were falling over, and we just decided to run, to get out of there.
York says, turns to the others and says, "Do you think that that magical effect triggered their contracts? What was the state of their core? Do you know anything about the core?"
We never had a chance to see any core.
Well, every one of the every one of the head construct makers headquarters has a vault at the heart of it, which is their central storage where they hoard all of the collected energy that they have you know, captured and stolen, and it's basically it's it's the central problem that we have with them ultimately is the hoarding of all of that energy is just bad news for everybody except the people who are hanging on to it, right? So like that's that's the big thing. Like if well, okay, so you don't know what I mean. So but okay, so here and by the way, this is York, the kind of stocky one. And so the workers in the headquarters and all of their facilities are contract bound when they work there, and so what they're the deal they make is that in exchange for as presented the safety room and board of working at that location, they're told it's protected and well supplied and the benefits, all of that sort of thing. They are agreeing to have kind of a like they sort of arrange to have a part of their own internal magical essence kind of tapped into this core, and it's only a little bit at a time. Like it's enough that they call it sustainable. um so as long as they're working there and as long as they're eating well and resting well, they're more or less at a steady state, right? But the catch is, if they leave, they forfeit all of it. So it's essentially signing up for a lifetime position because if you decide to leave, that's the end of your life. So I'm wondering if whatever you did was interpreted by their magical contract as them trying to break the contract and thus cashing in which case all of their sort of life essence would have gotten sucked out of them into that vault, into that core.
That's horrifying.
Well,
That's
yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, no, like they're all agreeing. It's like, yeah, this is what we're doing here. Um, and so the thing is, they're very powerful, obviously, partly by virtue of them having amassed this incredible store of magical energy that allows them to do all sorts of things. And they have these big facilities. They can make constructs, and lots of the constructs are not sentient and therefore just do whatever they want. And then, of course, some of the sentient constructs do decide to stay there because they can make more there, right? So, like, that's the logic, but, some sentient constructs are like with us and with the other rebel factions, but, that's the deal that some of them make, is that they can make more constructs if they're willing to play ball and stay with those facilities and that sort of thing. But gosh, what you said it was in chaos when you left. Do you think that you could get in to find the vault? I look. I don't want to presuppose. Like, you're obviously very powerful, and we've already gotten so much from you. And Trudelai is saying, yeah, let's slow this down a little bit. I think that this patrol has already exceeded our initial directive. We've checked in, but we need to return to our base, I think, and we would love to bring word of some potential allies to our people. But I don't think that we're in a position right now of planning an infiltration of the headquarters. And then York is saying, but right now, if they're in chaos right now, what, we're going to wait for them to re-secure control of it before, and like it might be too late. Now might be the only time that we could actually take the core.
What would you do with it if you had it?
Well, discharge it. Like, we can't make all of the energy go back to exactly where it was drawn from. It's too entangled for that. But we can discharge it and let it go back into the environment, the magical cosmos. Okay, like this is what I've been told. That's what we do. Is we discharge it because it goes back into the universe where it's supposed to be, instead of getting sealed away in little batteries.
Does that balance out some of the magical debt?
Well, yeah, so that's my understanding. Like, I'm just kind of still learning about this stuff. Like, I'm not like the expert, but that's yeah. I mean, it's basically like part of their whole thing with the core is that they're like taking all of the energy and then sealing it away and only just doling it out here and there where they want to use it, and only using it in their specific controlled ways. And like they're controlling it. It's like if someone's like holding a big weight, right? And they're holding it up and it's all potential, and it's like it's dangerous, it's sealed away there. But it's, or no, okay, better is like water, because how like water is like liquid and then it evaporates and it becomes like the clouds, and then the clouds rain it back down, and all kind of goes around in a cycle, right? Well, like that's what the energy is supposed to do, but they're breaking the cycle. They're sealing it away in a little thing, a core, and like not letting it participate in the magic cycle or whatever.
So you're thinking we could like infiltrate their headquarters, and since we managed to kill so many people unintentionally, we might be able to actually make our way to the core.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm asking, and I think Trudelai is kind of like, again, we just met you. That sounds incredibly dangerous. I don't know if we're up for that. And York is again just saying, but what other time will we have this opportunity?
Is there only one core?
Well, I mean, we think there's one big one at that headquarters. It's not the only one on the island.
Has anybody successfully released the cores before?
I mean, like little ones.
With no ill effect?
Well, I mean, I guess I'm like, I don't. What ill effect do you mean? What would you mean?
In your example, someone holding a great weight suddenly drops it. It might impact the ground and simply stop, or it might create a hole or hit somebody on the way down.
Well, I guess uh like if you make a fire, right? Like if you start a campfire, that's releasing a lot of energy, right? It's like energy from the wood, right? And like if you stand in it, then that'll hurt you. But like, does that mean the fire has an ill effect?
A fire can lead to a forest fire and burn a house down without intending. This sort of energy is dangerous, and all of its effects aren't quite known. Do you use it? Do you have magic which draws upon this energy of this place?
I mean, so we have members who are constructs and they can't help but use it. It is their life force, right? Like if we discharged their cores, they would die. But, that's that's a person who's trying to help just in a construct form, right? As opposed to a great big old core just sitting in the middle of a factory being used by evil people.
How do you discharge the core? Is there a magic involved or
Well,
something physical?
yeah, no, it's we have it's like it's not hard to do. It's there's controls on it. Like okay,
Hmm.
I'm suddenly like I'm only the one who knows the most about it on this patrol team. But like I mean, I know how to do it. Like if we can access the controls to it, I could tell it to discharge.
Ah, so it does require mediation.
I mean,
Um,
in theory, also I think if you just blew it up, that would discharge it too, but probably with more possible you know, danger to anyone in the immediate surroundings.
Hmm. It would be better if we could experiment with smaller cores first, but
I mean, do you have any? I mean if we had a smaller core here, I would show you.
Do we have any of those little?
we do,
Okay.
but not in here. Outside.
Okay. Well, why don't we go check on Lynn and see how breakfast is coming along, and let's
I'm
all
right
eat.
here.
Oh,
He's right behind you. Your wings get in the way. You couldn't see her.
thanks. Oh,
So, are you getting one out? Are you going to go try to do this? Is that the idea? I mean, it seemed like that was presented.
Yeah, I'm just
Uh,
busy being horrified at what we probably did at that other place.
yeah.
Um,
I'm. Yeah.
Maybe when we're by ourselves.
Well, so
Could be one
are
in the
you
corner.
saying anything about that? I mean,
About
are you concerned for the people? I mean, you haven't really
Yeah.
said anything in this conversation with them.
Um. do you really think that, like, we accidentally killed all those people?
Well, I mean, we can't say no for sure. I mean, you're the ones that were there when it happened. I was just speculating what it
Okay.
might have done that would make them fall unconscious. It wouldn't necessarily kill them, especially if it all depends on how their contract is set up. Right? Like because it could be too that like these guys are really devious with their contracts. Like it could be that if if it triggered some kind of failsafe, it might have just rendered them unconscious so that they could be like brought back or something instead of just instantly killed. I don't know. We'd have to like you're the ones
Okay.
that saw it happen. I couldn't tell you. I would say not necessarily, but maybe. I sure wouldn't want to have it happen to me either way. But we wouldn't have signed a contract like that. And then I think um, Stefan, who hasn't said very much, is just leaning back and just saying, "Well, nobody would ever want to hire you." He just he kind of flushes, and Trudelai just says, "Don't mind Stefan. She's just perennially pessimistic." And Stefan says, "And always right." Who was the one that said we should be on the lookout for siphoners in the party? Oh, right.
Were you taken by surprise by them? Your numbers are almost equal.
Well, so Trudelai says, yes, we were watching the headquarters, and we had no reason to suspect that the siphoners had made it this far into the hills. Usually they're found more in the city, in the low-lying areas, and also numbers also almost equal. I mean, I didn't watch the fight, but if the four of you took on 6 of them, I would say you are considerably more powerful than we are.
Are they always so primitive? They seemed more like animals.
Well, this far out, I can only imagine that they're very hungry, so to speak, and that can sometimes make them desperate. Certainly, the ones you encounter in the city who feed regularly can be quite intelligent, and certainly they have intelligent leadership.
Okay.
But if these were extra hungry because they're venturing further and further out, they might have been desperate and a little bit more irrational as a result.
Do you think your headquarters is in danger? That there might be more of them?
Our headquarters is pretty well protected, but I let them know after the rest. I was able to use ascending to contact the headquarters and let them know that we encountered siphoners, but they're pretty well protected. I don't think that the headquarters is in danger, but certainly every patrol we send out is going to have to watch their backs in the future. Send out perhaps larger groups better prepared.
Okay. Why don't we have dinner? Oh, have dinner. Have breakfast, and then I think my friends and I would like to go upstairs and have a discussion.
Of course, of course. And Trudelai is saying, my young friend here's enthusiasm notwithstanding, we are not asking you to risk your lives going back into a place that you only just escaped. And York is saying, but what if we could discharge the core? And Trudelai is saying, our mission was to watch the place, and we already got ambushed. So how about we not risk our own lives and we report back to base like we were ordered to? Or are we also just a fly by night, everybody does what they want organization? And then Clemens just looks over to all of you and just says, yeah, you guys can go talk. That's fine.
Disorganized.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Organized.
Yeah, we have no idea how that works.
all right. So, I imagine you can all eat whatever you like, and whatever next steps you would like to take are up to you. Trudel, I think, says that her plan, absent any other decision that you might make, is that she's going to take her team back to their headquarters.
Okay. So, once we're alone,
Mhm.
all right, pocket protectors. It seems like we have reached a fork in the road. We could try and go back and help the people who might have been freed from their magical constructs and raise ourselves an impromptu army of people who, having been abused, have now been freed, and try and take this core thing. Or we could go with them to their headquarters, take us to your leader kind of thing, or we could do something else. Um, Boss, what do you think?
It's still weird that you call me that. Because I'm not that.
You did make the business cards. It's a certain responsibility that comes with something like that.
And you've taught me so much that I tend to doubt myself. So you seem to have better judgment than I do in a lot of cases.
That's true.
Well, first, I think we should do that because it doesn't mean very much to me to see it done, but I got the impression that Vertigo might find it really helpful to see that core being discharged and see any effects of that. And then after that, maybe I think I don't really want to go back to the place, at least not right now. I think we need to learn more about these people first. I mean, who
Okay.
knows? Maybe it'll just be another place we have to escape from, but it's all complicated.
That's true. All right. So we're gonna go to their headquarters and see what happens.
They describe themselves as disorganized, but I suspect there's at least some modicum of organization. We at least could learn more about this siphon threat, too.
True.
And they would make probably better allies than the corporate types. Especially now, but even before, I suspect. We don't know the full extent of the damage that we created. It might not be quite as terrible as we expected it could be. The uncontrolled catastrophic reaction might not have extended too far. But that also means they're not nearly as vulnerable as they might be assuming. That
So I
said,
think we need to take into account that maybe not everything those other people told us were lies, and maybe not everything that these people tell us is going to be the truth, or it will just be their version of the truth. And sometimes it means different things to different people. So I think finding the facts of the situation and everything is going to be more difficult than we're getting a bunch of points of view, but we're not really getting any like absolutes, any facts. So I think we also need to be not so eager to throw in our lot with anybody because I don't know. I can't tell it's that they're lying. It's just every story has multiple sides, is all I'm saying.
I can't
Let's-
help but think that a lot of their technology derives from what Rupino created, which is intriguing. I also wonder about the need for their technology. Not the part about them capturing souls or parts of souls or something. That part is terrible. But the fact that they needed to capture errant bits of nightmare energy that came into this world, that part seems strange. Those breaches they were mentioning that seemed to come out of different places. If that part was true, and a lot of what they said probably should be taken with considerable loads of salt or pepper. I never quite understood that expression. Um, but if that part is true, then there's something else which is broken here. Not just their approach, but so removing them entirely might just make that worse. Um, and I'd rather not see the siphoners just get that energy because that seems also very terrifying. Those creatures were, they were, well, they were very disturbing. Um, there's probably a term for it. Cryptophores, or perhaps Oriophores. It's not really sure. I never really studied that part. Creatures weren't exactly my forte. But it also makes me wonder if how they would react to having the pipe used. Would it also have similar uncontrolled effects, or would it reduce them to mere mortals? If anyone here can be called a mere mortal, I suppose.
Hmm. I tend
But
to think of
yes,
myself as a mere mortal, so
you're not anything mere, brother. But yes, I would like to see the disruption of the orb, the core, I guess they call them, because when that much energy is released, it goes somewhere. Hopefully, a small one is less dangerous. There's also a chance it could release the same creature that was put into it in the first place, so we should be on our guard.
okay. So go on a fact-finding mission to get actual facts and see past the points of view from our new allies, and hopefully they're telling the truth, and they'll be friends.
Besides, I rather wish to speak to a self-aware construct here. I know it won't be the same as talking to sequential, but I am curious.
Okay. So let's head back downstairs and let them know what we've decided. I think we should have them do the demonstration on releasing the energy from the little ball of magical toffee, um, just so that you see it done and you can start accumulating some knowledge on that before we head out. Does that all work for everyone? Saline? All right. We go back downstairs.
They're waiting. They've kind of put all of their stuff together, so they look like they would be ready to go if that's the decision made.
Uh, so we've decided to come and uh, see your whole setup and learn more about you, um, and have you show um, Vertigo how to how to release some of that magical energy, and then I guess we'll head off with you back to, you know, wherever we're going, your headquarters, take us to your leader, that whole thing.
So I can't promise you access to the headquarters. Placer will have to make that call once they've had a look at you. But I suspect that they will say yes. It's just not my call.
Okay.
But York can show you what it look, discharging the orbs if you have, some little ones.
Yeah, we can bring them out once we're all cleaned up. So,
Are you
are
just
we all?
leaving the tower here, or?
Oh, no, don't worry about it.
All right.
Um, so, I Vertigo, why don't you and I escort them out to the edge of that spell that you put up, uh, and then Zaleen and Lynn can join us.
Perfect.
And I'm bringing Buster with me.
Okay. So the private sanctum lasts 24 hours, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
So that would still be up, I would imagine. So you leave the tower and you're still within that little narrow band around, unless you go ahead and exit the private sanctum as well.
Yeah, I think the intention is for us to move outside of the effect of it.
Yeah.
And just leave the cloud there for now.
All right. So it is a brisk morning, partly cloudy outside, although you certainly still kind of smell smoke from the city in the air a little bit. But there doesn't seem to be anything of concern in the forest around.
Okie doke.
And your four guests are, have got all of their stuff together, and York has taken out a small device, sort of hand-sized, and he kind of holds it up to show you, and is like, "See, you can use this on the small ones." And you can see that it has a little socket that is like the size of those little orbs.
What is it normally used for? What is this device?
Well, it's like it. You know how I mentioned the big core would probably have like a control panel to it. Well, like this is just it's a little control panel for a little one. You use this, or like they either fit into some other sort of a device, or you can put it in here to manipulate the energy of it, and you can connect that up to other things. It's just like it's how you use them, but mostly because of our whole deal, we mostly use it to discharge them. But like in theory, it could be used to do other things.
Are these hard to come by?
I mean, I have another one. I could give you one, and I have another in my pack.
It might come useful.
I mean, we can't like make our own now, but like half the technology in the city is based on this. So like, they're around. And he hands you the one that he's got, and you can take a look at it. There's not a lot to it. It has a couple. It's like most of the volume of it is just this socket designed to accept this little orb, that like to fit it in there and then like sort of enclose around it. But then there's just a few other little like gemstone devices and some just like various little controls. And then there's also like something that looks like it's designed to plug into something else.
If we have a few moments, I wouldn't mind taking a closer look at this.
Sure. I mean, you can keep that one if you want. I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm increasingly convinced we're all on the same side here if we can, finish sniffing each other.
That's a weird thing to say.
Okay, sorry.
And Vertigo is going to sit down and If people interrupt him, that's fine. But he's intending to ritually cast Identify
Sure.
while holding the item. I'm not sure if the glove gives anything to this either.
Um, I think, let's see. I think that the glove shows you it shows you a brief vision of this device with one of the glowing orbs in it being plugged into a sort of like an acceptable connection on the front of a carriage, much like the one you rode from the docks to the headquarters in. Not the same one, but similar. And you feel just a vague sense of unease that doesn't seem to like. I think the Fey magic doesn't like this, and you get a sense that the glove is giving you kind of an emotional quality to this vision of not liking this kind of magic. But what you are seeing essentially is this device holding what is essentially very much like a magic battery being used to power a carriage construct.
Okay. Is there a sense of how long an orb like that lasts? Like, is that a drive, or is that the car will drive forever?
Apparently, I think you wouldn't necessarily intuit this, but like I'll just go ahead and you're doing the identify, and I think part of what you're gonna get as part of that, I'll go ahead and just give you the results because I imagine everyone's just making small talk while that happens. And what you're going to realize is that the size of the orb is not necessarily indicative of the content, like the amount of energy inside. There are different sizes, but they and a bigger one can hold more, but just the size doesn't tell you, like because it's like a fuel cell in that way. Like it holds some amount, but it doesn't get smaller as you use it up.
Okay.
And so you get the sense that like one that size could conceivably run a carriage like that for several days, potentially. So, is everyone else making chit chat while Vertigo identifies the little device?
Yep.
All right. So, tell me if any of that is something you would like to role play, or we can just go ahead and move on to the demonstration. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, in any case, Vertigo finishes identifying the little device. You have a very real sense now of, like, I think you wouldn't even really need York to demonstrate it. Having identified it, you understand how it works now. And you basically understand that the little controls on it, so to speak, basically allow it to connect into something else to manipulate the rate of depletion of the energy as it's being drawn into something else, but you can also just set it to sort of empty, empty the orb. Like, and so you understand how to do that now. I haven't made an item in D&D Beyond for this, but I will.
Nope. And it doesn't have any uses beyond this. It's a fascinating kind of use of battery.
I think what you know now also, though, is that this is how you use those orbs to power constructs. And it doesn't necessarily mean big sentient constructs. It could just mean like any machine that is run on this energy. This is the generic technology solution for that.
It's sort of simple and complex at the same time. I can see how it can be used in the way that they're suggesting. Does make me wonder what the flavor of that bread really was, though.
True Lies, what bread?
We came across a device that seemed to use these, that made bread. It was an odd use, but it was effective sometimes.
All right, I will take your word for it. I have no idea what you're talking about.
You don't have that sort of common device?
I mean, we have bread. We
You
have
don't have
ovens.
bread guns?
I can't say I've ever seen a bread gun, but I haven't seen everything.
Oh well,
I guess we're special.
different time, I suppose, where bread was more important, I guess.
Yep.
And yeah, one of the orbs comes out of the bag.
All right. Yeah.
I don't have the particular pedigree of this, so it's just one of the ones we collected along the way.
That's fine.
And before we go through with this, he will cast Detect Nightmare to have it running. Mostly kind of, I mean, expecting, although there might be differences in terms of what he sees with them
Yeah.
or here, but also kind of expecting if there's any changes in density, essentially, to try to.
Sure. So as you cast that, you do still sense that the ambient nightmare energy is higher, broadly speaking, here than outside of Dinuthair, but it is dramatically less than either at the docks or in the headquarters. You suspect part of that is just because you're in a natural environment here rather than a manufactured dense one. You don't sense any particular concentration of it in any of the people that you're with here. You certainly detect the presence of the energy itself in the orb, as it has worked for you before. But you also notice that the way that in the same way that detect magic can tell you the school of the magic, the energy does appear different when it's in the concentrated, stabilized form than when it is a corrupting nightmare force in a person. You can tell the difference. But you also understand that it is essentially just different forms of energy, right? And so in any case, though, the actual little device itself doesn't seem to have any in it. It is purely like a facilitator device.
Okay.
It's kind of like a wire doesn't inherently have any electricity in it. It just conducts.
So he'll conduct the experiment with Mage Hand. So kind
Sure,
of put it
sure.
about 29 feet away. Is everybody ready?
York is just like, yeah, I understand why you're being extra cautious. You'll see why it's fine in a minute, but you're all good.
Always safer if you can.
Yeah. So I think what most of you see when you activate the discharge function is that you hear a little bit of a high whining sound, just like that gradually sort of lowers, and you see the light of the orb kind of just gradually dim. But what you see with the Detect Nightmare spell up, Vertigo, is emerging from the little sort of socket, the socket end that might connect to something else. You see a spray of sort of luminous energy that almost exists almost like spraying water that makes sort of like a rainbow. It's not making a rainbow, but it's making sort of light in that sort of refraction way. And it's definitely not the sort of dark, nightmarish cloud that you've seen Nightmare in before. The energy seems transformed more like it looks in the orb itself, but it just kind of sort of sprays out that end and kind of just gradually dissipates out.
Is there any sort of coherence or pattern or shape of anything coming out of it?
Make a investigation check. 17.
17.
Yeah. I think that with a 17, there is not any broad pattern to it. But here and there within the spray, you do notice that like imagine that you've got like a water hose with your thumb on the end where it's kind of like not just pouring out but like spraying out in like a fan, right? So imagine you're kind of doing that, but as you watch this sort of fan of water, imagine little parts of it are kind of like spinning and twisting out in like their own ways. And so you do kind of sense that there is some of this energy that does seem to be getting drawn to things in the environment that you're not seeing, but it disappears from view before you can see it like go to anything. But it doesn't all seem to be moving in the same direction, right? Mostly the flow is spraying out the end of, the open end of this thing, but you do see little bits that seem to be getting drawn out to other unknown targets.
Well, that was anticlimactic, which I think is one of my favorite words for the moment.
Well, so now you see why it was like the mage hand, like it's fine. Like we do this all the time. Like this is kind of what like we think the whole problem is that like every like it's what Dinuthair is, right? Like it's like the problem is everything is like bottled up and like trapped and like unable to participate in the natural cycles.
I've heard that theory before. I'm not sure if I subscribe to it yet, but there may be something to it.
Well, I mean that's the way it's been explained to me. So I.
Can I hold on to this for the moment?
Yeah. Like I said, you can keep that one. I have another. You have more.
Is there actually anything left of the orb, or is it completely dissipated?
No, I think as the light fades, it does just to seem to kind of pop like a soap bubble, and there's nothing left. But then again, when you have previously captured nightmares, like it didn't, like you didn't have an empty one that you filled.
Right.
Okay. Shall we go see their headquarters?
Yeah.
All right. So.
All right. Take us to your leader.
Well, and so do you let them see what you do with the tower? Because right now it's still inside the private sanctum.
I assume that Zaylene would shrink it down and.
Well, but the question
Put it away.
is, do you let them see that? Because right now they're outside the private sanctum, and so if you just went back in there and closed it down and then came back out, they wouldn't know that anything had happened to the tower.
That's what I would do because I don't want anybody to know.
Sure. Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess it's well protected, right? You're just leaving the tower. Like oh, you know what? Look, we are curious about the tower. If you want to tell us, we would like to know. But obviously, we understand if you have some secrets that you want to keep. We understand. All right. So,
All right.
I think.
It's a secret.
Do you have
That's
do you have Buster out, or do you have him back in the tower?
No, Buster is out.
Mhm.
Buster needs to work off some energy.
Sure.
And
Buster is loving running up and down through this forest. Like, running ahead and then running back and then running back behind where you were and then running back up to catch up with you. And yeah, he's getting his zoomies out. And
Alright.
And Clement, like some of the others are like a little wary of Buster, but Clements is, eager to point out, you should have seen him rip those siphoners up. Like, he helped. So,
Yep.
uh, the rebel patrol here uh, gradually leads you kind of more uh, generally to the east on our map here, further into the hills. And you are, you know, kind of going up and down and up and down over some hills and you know, through forested areas and other hilly areas. And you travel overall somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 miles, just, you know, making your way in this direction. Um, and gradually you do spot that you seem to be headed, broadly speaking, towards what looks like a cave entrance that's kind of just in a, you know, rocky slope. There's a cave there, and you seem to be heading in that direction. And at this point, Trudelai says, "So I think what we need to do here is, if you don't mind staying here for a moment, we're going to go in, report in, let them know that you're here, and then send someone back out to let you know if, you know, what's the next step. Does that sound all right? I mean, we're not trying to trick you or anything. We have a protocol here because we're trying to stay hidden, obviously."
Mm-hmm. Um, what's the thing where you try and see if they're deceiving you? Is
Oh,
that just
insight check?
perception?
Yeah. Insight.
Insight.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Natural 20.
Wow. Okay.
28.
Okay. Um, you don't sense any deception. What you sense is that they are a little bit worried that whoever is actually in charge here is going to think they did the wrong thing by bringing you back here. And it's not so much that they think they did the wrong thing as much as it's not their call. And if they get overruled, then that means that, you know, they're going to kind of be in the doghouse, so to speak.
Right.
So they do have a little bit of anxiety in that regard because, you know, they did mention that it wasn't their call if you get let in, but they,
Yep.
you know, you don't sense from them any hesitation or deception as far as bringing you here beyond the idea that she doesn't have complete control over what happens next.
Okay. Yeah, we'll wait here. I think that's we don't want to alarm anyone.
All right. So as you are, you know, you watch them, you know, travel up the rest of this slope. Like they leave you basically somewhere in the neighborhood of like half a mile out from where you can see this cave entrance, and you can kind of watch them make their way, you know, up the slope and into the cave. And you kind of just hang out, or is there anything else you want to do in the meantime?
No, we're just waiting to see what happens.
Um,
I want to look around with my little squinty eyes.
Sure, sure. Um, it's what the range is 30 feet. Is that right?
Um, yes.
Okay. Um, you find something that you're not quite sure you understand because mostly you don't see anything, but just here and there as you look around, every so often, like something will look just like a little bit blurry, like for a second out of the corner of your eye, maybe you thought there was an illusion there, but then when you look right at it, you don't see one. And it's a little bit confusing. You're not used to getting this kind of feedback from your true sight. You're not sure what it means. I mean, I would say just based on your site. If you wanted to try to like intuit something about that, that would be a roll.
Yeah, we'll do that. What do you want me to roll?
Okay. I think investigation or arcana probably.
Mm,
You'll get different answers depending on which you do.
Yeah, I'm gonna do. Well, I mean, I've got the same. It's a +3 to either. So, the dice just haven't been liking me, but I'm gonna try Arcana.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Unfortunately, with an 8, you're not sure. You something's a little funny here, but you can't quite place what it is or what's happening.
I'm gonna use message and like whisper that to Nedry, or excuse me, Vertigo.
You know, hear a telepathic voice back in your head.
What? Where did you see it?
I will.
It's hard to point
Motion.
to because whenever you look directly at it, you don't see it. It's like you keep kind of catching something out of the corner of your eye, but then when you look at it, it's fine.
Yeah, so I mean, I can keep using message. It's just a cantrip, so whatever. So I will continue to describe this. Any ideas?
Mm,
I mean, you can like if you want to try other things, you can Vertigo. You can also make an Arcana check at disadvantage because you're going just based on subjective perception as opposed to your own senses. You know, because
I
it's one
think-
thing to try to guess based on what she's describing versus something you're
Yeah.
able to actually perceive.
I think that would take too long. I think because of this place, he'll actually cast Detect Nightmare and see
Okay.
if he sees any changes in the nightmare energy.
You do not. Everything's pretty much the same.
Okay, and then maybe try an Arcana roll to try to figure out if there's anything.
So Arcana at disadvantage because you can only go by based on the description as opposed to something.
nothing seems too unusual.
Oh,
lowest
wow.
is 27.
Okay, so with disadvantage at 27, I think you did okay. What you think Carolina is seeing is that someone has cast an illusion of the actual landscape on top of the actual landscape. So there is an illusion present here of what is actually here.
That's neat. It's
And you
just
can test that by like you go over and you find like a fist-sized rock, and you can pick it up, and you are holding the rock, but it still looks like it's there on the ground.
that's odd, but I think we figured it out. At least what it is.
And just sort of taking and walking through, I don't know if there's, is it grassy or just rocky or whatever.
Well, yeah, there's scrub, but it's also kind of a rocky slope, so there's definitely a lot of rocks here and there.
Does it update, or is it always is the illusion static?
It seems to be static for the moment.
Okay.
Like you don't know long term, but at least in the space of a minute or two while you're investigating, it doesn't seem to update. So like if you set down the rock that you just picked up next to the illusory one, now it looks like there's two of them, but one is illusory and the other is real.
And the hand passes right through the illusory rock.
Yeah.
It does no substance.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been using telepathy this entire time. Just sort of walks 30 feet away, picks up a rock, shows it to Lynn, and just starts placing it in different places as it starts to conflict. Does it seem to be if he moves another 20 feet away, is it still there too? Like
Yeah.
some way of judging the scope of this. Pick up a small rock and sort of hurl it badly. This 8 strength.
Yeah, like this seems to be a pretty large area of effect.
So, in message again, I think I would reply maybe they cast a big illusion to conceal a small difference.
I
Maybe.
think so. With that high of an Arcana spell, Vertigo, you are familiar with a spell called Hallucinatory Terrain that normally wouldn't be used this way, but could have an effect like this. If you used that spell, which is designed to create an illusion of terrain in a big area, and you could use it to just replicate the actual terrain, although usually, like, why would you do that, right? But that would explain what you're seeing here.
I've read about this spell. I never bothered learning it because I couldn't figure out why I would use it. But I think you're right. If everything just looks normal, then the one thing that isn't normal wouldn't be picked out. So maybe watch your step. Or there might be other
Well,
things concealing the headquarters.
I mean, maybe all they're trying to hide is the door.
Hmm. Hmm. It's a
You-
neat trick, though.
You hear a voice, and it sounds like an amplified voice coming from some distance, and it's like it's not in the direction of where you see the cave mouth. And you don't see what's generating it, but again, it sounds like magically amplified. And the voice says, "Very clever. Clearly, you are skilled in arcana to recognize the effect here. So tell me, what is it that you wish from us? And why should we let you inside our base?"
Well, I mean, we can go. We like we're not trying to hurt anybody. We just trying to see what we can help with.
You want to make a persuasion check? I mean, you don't have to.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty good at those.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
mind,
yeah.
even if the dice are going to be shitty.
Mhm.
19.
All right, yeah.
Yay!
And as you are um, watching, emerging from this rocky hillside, like not where the cave mouth is, but considerably to one side, maybe like 150 yards to the side, you see emerging from the rocky slope is an enormous construct. It is shaped like the first thing you see is what looks like a draconic head emerging from on the end of a long serpentine draconic neck coming out of the slope, and it is the size that like this would be a gargantuan creature, meaning it's that big, the head would be. But then what emerges following that neck is a body much more like a panther, and where you might expect on a dragon to see wings, you see these strange tentacles with like spiked like palms, ends, flared ends with spikes on them. It's basically shaped like a displacer beast with a dragon head, and but at the same time, even standing, on its four legs, at the back is probably like 18 feet tall. It's very big.
Whoa.
And
that's
it
cool.
emerges from this what looks like an ordinary rock wall, and then kind of manages to close the distance to where you are pretty fast, because it's not like in a hurry, it's just big, so it's able in about 30 seconds to close that distance at a reasonable pace, and it approaches to within like, I guess here's the question. It's watching you carefully and your body language. It would stop the instant it sensed that you were, like, concerned, and it would not approach any closer. But otherwise, it would probably come to within about 30 feet. Would you, at any point before that, give it the impression that you're frightened or worried that it's going to attack or something?
I mean, once I saw how big it was and how fast it moved, I was like, well, I guess this is how we die. Just like, whatever. It's all new.
I'm gonna take a ready position.
Okay.
If I'm gonna
I
die,
think-
it's gonna be on my feet.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is that if you make any motion at all that suggests that you are concerned about its approach, it stops and it doesn't come closer. And so let's say maybe it only approaches to like 60 feet or so away.
Okay.
And I think once it's a little bit closer, you see also that in its chest, like just below where that long serpentine draconic neck emerges, you see what looks like a hatch, and it looks very much similar in design to the hatch that Zephyr emerged from Sheldrake in. So you suspect that is a place where a humanoid pilot could be. But
Okay.
this
I'm just gonna walk up to it.
okay, sure. It looks way down at you from the end of its neck and just says, "Welcome. You are the one called Carolina."
That's what it says on the business cards. And you are?
I am Placer. I look after this small community. I consider it my duty to ensure that they are protected from threats. However, one of the ways in which we can protect ourselves from threats is by making allies. I've been told of how you helped our patrol team.
Well, I mean, it seemed like the right thing to do.
Are the rest of you kind of still staying back, or?
I'm gonna move forward to back up Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, Vertigo wants to move forward because I think the detect nightmare would still be active because
Mhm.
last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And kind of catch it in the edge
Sure.
and move close enough to see
Yeah.
what effect it has.
What you see is, similar to the way that it detects the contained orbs. You definitely sense that this construct is powered by those.
But
Other-
no other
But
overriding.
you don't
kind
see
of,
it otherwise, though. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
And so the panther body is kind of seated now, on its haunches, but the neck is so long that it's kind of having to curve down to look down at you all, and it just says, "I mean you no harm if you mean no harm to my people. I know that my appearance can be intimidating to those who are unfamiliar, or for that matter, those who are familiar with constructs of my design. Which are you, I wonder?"
Not familiar with the design?
Yeah, I've never seen a construct like you before.
Are you modeled after an actual creature, or is it an original creation? A sort of whimsy? Or was there a particular purpose in your design? Was the neck intended to be able to peer over walls, for example?
There is kind of a smile that kind of forms even on the draconic mouth there, and it just says, "It does come in handy for looking over walls." To answer the broader question, my design is a composite of real creatures, not this big, but that is the case for many of the large constructs created by the Dinutherians. I was created originally, however, to be piloted, a machine of war and violence, and I have, since gaining awareness, chosen to turn my abilities in other directions. But
Are
I
you
am
still
curious.
piloted?
There is a longer pause than you might expect when you say that. And then they say, "No, I'm not." But if I may, I have questions for you as well.
Shoot. Oh, bad choice of words. Proceed.
You, at looking at Carolina, would seem to be Dunatharian, and yet you profess ignorance to things that any Dunatharian should know. The rest of you, form-locked, if I'm not mistaken.
I try not to hold it against them.
Nor should you if that is the case, but we have not had form-locked here since the sealing.
Are you that old? That didn't come out quite the way I meant it. But were you here for the sealing?
I was
Did you
created.
exist?
I was created, physically constructed before the sealing, but I gained my sentience after.
Do you remember much of that time?
It is. I'm given to understand it is somewhat like you might experience memories of the time in which you were a young child, before you understood the world. There are glimpses, but they were of things that I did not understand at the time, and so do not always give me trustable information.
Was it like this before? With the mechanical people and the siphoners. What was it like before, if you remember at all? Or did this happen in the meantime? Did it all become this way?
Many of the evils perpetuated by parts of Dinutherian society began long before the sealing. However, these misuses and evils done, the troubles you describe, the siphoners, the distasteful contracts created by the construct makers have accelerated since access to magic outside the seal became scarce. Many who were already selfish became desperate as well, and this did not improve their behavior. However, there have been some things, like the increasing sentience of constructs, has been a phenomenon that only began once the sealing started. This is something that I am grateful for, even as this is not a unambiguous good. There are many constructs who, given sentience, still choose to ally themselves with their evil creators. I do not. There was, for a time, an ability that the construct makers had to eliminate gained sentience when it produced rebellious behavior. But then, we believe the pillar changed, and the sentience could no longer be eliminated in that way. Their attempts to wipe memories from constructs and restore the non-sentient mind stopped functioning. And this has produced, as a result, many more sentient constructs because the construct makers could no longer prevent it from emerging.
So you said the pillar did that?
How familiar are you with the pillar?
Well, never seen it for myself.
Always can learn more.
It is something that vanishingly few have seen firsthand. It is difficult to reach in any event, even before it was protected, but the Pillarines now jealously guard any access to it. Someone, however, must have made it through. And whoever that was must have wished for it to be impossible for construct sentience to be erased, because that is what happened.
Bartholomew.
Yes. I mean, you're in character, you don't know that, but yes.
No. It's
Yeah.
it's purely player at that point. Just kind of like, ah.
So, this place is, well, it's not exactly, there's a lot wrong here.
That is an understatement.
It's a place to start. Um, and I think, what we would like to do is stop that wrong. But it's confusing here. The people that made you are the same people that seem to be doing a lot of harm. And then there are the siphoners, which I have no idea what those actually are.
The siphoners are what becomes of a Dunutherian who, in their greed, draws on the magic essence of another humanoid voluntarily and personally through violence. It can grant them great power in the moment, but they become dependent on it and can no longer sustain themselves in any other way.
Right. I don't know who figured that out, but I'm not sure if they were brilliant or crazy. Or both.
I make no inherent judgment on discovery, but the siphoners themselves are a devastating scourge to anyone who would attempt to live in a more balanced fashion.
Do you do that here? Are your people balanced?
We do what we can. We exist in a place where balance has been denied us, and we do what we can to restore it where we can. However, our contributions to that effort are never as large as we would like. For what it's worth, I am persuaded that our goals are sufficiently aligned that you may enter our home, but we are not an army. You are powerful, and if you are interested in helping us, we will accept your help. And if there is help that we can grant you, we shall. But as I have mentioned, we are not an army. And my primary goal at present is to keep my people safe. We wish to restore the balance where we can, but throwing our lives away is not how I believe that should be done. Would you care to
Yeah.
enter?
Yes, please.
All right. And this enormous construct, stands and turns and begins walking back towards the part of the rocky slope where they seemed to emerge from.
Okay. We follow.
And as you follow behind, they're definitely walking deliberately slow so that you can keep up. And as you get close, certainly with your true vision, once it's within range, Carolina, you see that part of the design for the hallucinatory terrain being the same is so that it seems like you know where the cave entrance is, only, in fact, it's not there. So you find yourself walking into a cave that looks like there's no cave. And inside, you see that this cave has been, fitted out like people have been staying here. So, like, there's like a camp of sorts. There are some shelters built within this cave. You see people have, got, kills from like hunting. Like cooking over a fire and, leather being tanned. And people have been surviving here in the wilderness. You would guess based on the size of the camp that there is somewhere between maybe 25 to 40 people living here. And
Where did all these people come from?
Most are refugees from the city. Those who wished to deny themselves to the others that might take them and exploit them. They wished to escape, and there are places elsewhere where there are more, but these are the ones who also wish to fight back. There are other communities scattered throughout Dinuthair where we have groups of people who wish to fight, but it is difficult in such a complex, difficult, not all agree on the best methods for what must be done. And now that you have entered the cave with Placer, you see lots more people, including the four from the patrol who are looking very relieved that you have walked in with Placer now. But you have lots of other people looking like they're going about their business, but they're certainly aware that new people have just walked in with this enormous construct and are curious as a result. And you are kind of guided, gesturing with one of these big tentacles to a little bit of a tent where you can kind of go in and sit, and Placer like sort of lays down to where their head can like reach into the tent.
I don't know if this is going to be too personal a question, but I got the impression that your original design wasn't might be something to be afraid of. I'm not saying that I'm like scared you're gonna hurt us or anything. That's not it. I'm just curious what that original intent was.
I, in my pre-sentience days, was certainly designed for quickly striking enemy forces and causing damage quickly and then escaping and disappearing into the environment. That is what my design is for, and it is what many of my non-sentient cousins still are employed in doing. However, my skills have proved useful in hiding our location from those who might seek to root us out.
I'm sure they're very grateful for your efforts on their behalf.
We are all a collective here. We are all contributing. I have been given a position of authority simply as a result of my size and strength, which I understand, but it is not something I sought. I'm told by Trudelai that the four of you were inside the Construct Maker's headquarters, and that you created some magical effect there. I have been briefed on some of the details, but it sounds as though the true nature and extent of what has happened there is not clear.
You didn't really stick around to see the aftermath because we needed to get out of there.
It is true that there are many dangers in the headquarters. We are placed here in some respects to try to monitor them in what ways we can, but it is a fortress far too dangerous for us to attempt any assault. Or at least that's how it has been. I don't ask you to do anything different, but what I do ask is, what is it that you would like to do? What is it that you propose to do?
I mean, you guys seem to be the most aligned with us. You're looking to live in balance. And the contract makers, the construct makers, are an extreme danger, so much that the entire island was sealed away. I think they need to be dismantled. And the same with the siphoners.
Yeah. I have this feeling like there's still a piece of this we're missing. Like, where did all of this nightmare stuff come from in the first place? Like, why is so much of it here? What happened? Like, what, and how can we fix that? Because that's the larger problem here.
And how or if or why might the pillar be involved? I mean, there's not one of those everywhere.
This is
And it
true.
seem-
The origin of the original nightmares predates our earliest history. It was always part of life on the island, as, of course, was the pillar, which we believe to date back to Titans in the earliest formation of what we now know as the material plane. But these are things that we know very little in the way of facts about. We can only observe behavior and effects.
Would the Pillarines be worth talking to? They have their mission, but do they know things?
The Pillarines have made themselves secluded and refused to talk to anyone outside of their own order for some time. However, it is certainly true that outsiders arriving in Dinuthere for the first time that I am aware of might be something that would pique their interest. What we can tell you about them now is that they were always an order devoted to guarding the pillar because of the incredible danger it represents. But since Dinuthere was sealed away, they became, to use an uncharitable word, fanatical. No longer was their mission limited to guarding the pillar, but now they attack with incredible prejudice anyone who even approaches their facility, which surrounds the pillar. It is very dangerous to approach, and given that the only reason to approach would be to attempt to reach the pillar, which is dangerous in its own way, few approach, few attempt to even communicate with them anymore. But there is no doubt that they know much that we do not. You would need a
If
way to
we
persuade
were-
them to talk to you, though, because at present they simply fire upon anyone with their magical artillery.
If we wanted to go talk to them, would there be any, pardon our hesitation, but given where we came from, like the last place that we were, that just wondering if us leaving is an option, like not to like to go, talk to them. Was the construct makers did not, were not really on board with us leaving at all. So
Based on my understanding of your capabilities, I highly doubt that we could prevent you from leaving even if we wished to. We certainly hope that we can be allies in the broader fight, but we would not seek to limit your movements in any way. We would certainly
Oh.
request that you not divulge our location to anyone who might do us harm.
I don't think any of us would want that. Seems like it's really just a bunch of innocent people kind of
Do you ask
trying
because
to just survive.
do you ask this because the construct makers attempted to limit your movement in this way.
Yeah.
That does not surprise me. If they were to also discover that you are from the outside, they would see recovery of your captivity and extraction of the information for how to travel through the barrier would be their highest priority.
So they may kind of already know about that because they were there when we landed. Okay.
Then I would
Are
urge
we
you
putting
to...
you guys in danger? Because we're like, that's not what we want. We'll go if that's potentially a problem.
I appreciate your concern. I think that we are protected enough here for the moment. But I would ask you certainly, for your own sakes and ours, to act with caution in this regard. Because they will stop at nothing to find a way to leave the seal. To their impression, the problem of the seal is simply that it prevents them from expanding and exploiting the rest of the world as they have already done to this island.
Yeah, we don't want that.
You wouldn't be worried or interested in removing the seal?
It is an interesting question. Certainly, the presence of the seal has made things worse for those of us here. It is not, I would say, a good thing. But you ask me if I would wish to see the seal removed, and I would say, for what purpose? My purpose is to stop the construct makers, and they are here. The seal prevents them from escaping me.
Tell me of the city. Is everyone either part of the construct makers organization or involved in the siphoners or
Not everyone.
rebels like you?
Not
No.
everyone, though it is increasingly difficult and unsafe for individuals in the city to not have some kind of alignment. No one allies with the siphoners but the siphoners, though many find themselves introduced into their ranks, let's say, under duress. Let me be clear, no one can be turned into a siphoner against their will, but they do sometimes have ways of persuading people that it is in their best interest. The construct makers, in turn, promise people safety, but often with a web of contractual requirements that they must follow. There are many in the city who have been attempting to survive without falling prey to either of these factions, just trying to live their lives, but it has, as the years have progressed, become more and more difficult to do so. Many try, and there are fewer of them by the year. Then there are many who have fled the city, as we have. Some who choose to continue to take action, some who simply hope to find a place where they can escape the notice of either of the others. But it is difficult for people who have always known the city to live in the wilderness. There are many dangers.
The siphoners are many?
The discovery that even a small nest has made its way this far into the hills is alarming. It suggests to me that they are expanding their reach because they are the density of their population in the more populated areas might be sufficient that they cannot sustain themselves from the city's population any longer. They have begun to expand outwards as a result. I don't think any know truly how many there are total, but I would venture to say that hundreds is quite certain, possibly more. And if you fought some, then you know that even a single one is more than the match for any unarmed individual, and can in fact be difficult to handle even for someone prepared and schooled in combat or magic. But in some ways, a magic user is especially prey to their abilities.
Have you ever heard of a siphoner coming back? No longer having the condition?
Not to my knowledge. I cannot rule out the possibility of it. It is somewhat a mystery to me. I understand the process by which it happens, but not the arcane mechanism that occurs in the biology. If it can be reversed, I do not know of a way, but I do not know that there is no way. I know that many of those who would lead them do not wish to be returned to the way they were. And so, it sounds as though you are powerful adventurers who seek to protect. I was shown a copy of your business cards. And it would seem to me, based on our conversation, that your enemies are ours. So tell me, how can we aid each other?
Sounds like to me we need to go talk to the Pillarines. Yes? Gonna look around at everybody.
I'd love to know what they know and the effect of the pillar.
Yeah.
The intent is to get to the root of the problem. Just beyond the factions and the people being terrible and, you know, the monsters and stuff. There's a root cause for all of this. And if we can find it and do something about it, then the goal is to, well, eventually I think we'd like to take down this bubble because it's causing other problems, but the issues here are causing problems in the larger world, even in the different planes. So we need to figure out what the issue is and fix that.
We need to restore the balance.
And the problem isn't contained here, despite what the dome feels like. The same sorts of things are happening on the other side, not to the same degree. That's also what we're trying to prevent.
Well, you certainly set your sights on big prey. I cannot tell you what the Pillarines might know, or what they would say, nor even what would persuade them to speak with you rather than attack. But I can give you a map, or even perhaps, if you like, a guide that will direct you to their territory. I can give you some indication of the sorts of attacks you are likely to encounter if you enter their territory without having made some other preparation. That preparation, I don't know what it would be. As I mentioned, we have not approached in some time because we are attacked if we do.
Do any join their orders? Any new?
I've not heard of such a thing in many years.
I was hoping there was a test. I'm good at tests.
Once upon a time, before they became zealots in their current fashion, and this may continue now, part of joining the Pillarines required a mystical procedure that was said to silence the subconscious mind. This was intended to prevent those who guard the pillar from influencing or being influenced by the pillar itself. Their proximity makes this highly dangerous, if not for some preparation. It would seem to me that if they still remain in that vicinity, they must do something of that order, or else we would see the pillar's effects much more frequently. My understanding is the pillar acts without conscious command, but instead reads the deepest desires of those who approach it. And one's deepest desires are not even always known to that individual.
Wow.
If you seek the root of all of the problems in this place, your ambitions are greater than I could have ever thought to even attempt. If we are able to aid you in this, we shall. But you have set your sights much higher than I have ever been able to set my own. The pillar is the center of everything on this island. It was what gave us the means to fight the nightmares, but it has done much else also. I don't know if it has a will or if it only responds to the wills of mortals. But it is dangerous. The Pillarines who guard it extend that danger further out. But I have no question is in my mind that they know much. If you wish to speak with them, I wish you luck.
Well, while we're figuring out what we want to do, is there anything we can do to help around here?
Well, certainly we are all curious to know the status of the headquarters, and it has always been something far too dangerous for us to approach. Anything you can tell us about what goes on in there would be useful. However, we understand if that is not your current priority.
Vertigo usually takes notes on everything, so if anybody's going to know something, it's probably him.
I can certainly share all the observations I made. Although I never did get a chance to see their library. It probably would have been depressing anyway. A lot of contracts.
I have no doubt.
They were very guarded.
Indeed, that is their nature. They hoard. Everything that they build is a tool designed to allow them to gather more. in some ways, they are very draconic.
Do you? Interesting. Do you feel an affinity with the creatures you were modeled after? Is that part of your consciousness? Is there a connection between your consciousness and, say, the the plane of forms, or where consciousnesses tend to potentially be formed? Hmm. Do you consider yourself to be draconic? Hmm. Also, not everything that they created is necessarily bad, yourself being a prime example, at least so far as I've been able to determine.
You ask a lot of questions, small one.
Kind of
There's
his
a lot
thing.
to
It's
know.
amazing how many questions fit inside that tiny little body. Sorry, Vertigo. You're not really that tiny. I apologize.
Let me attempt to answer some of those at least. I have never met a true dragon. So there are many things that I only know by their reputation. I am aware that part of my design is modeled after them. And so I wonder sometimes how much of who I am as my sentience developed might stem from that visual heritage. I can only speculate. And as you say, I don't consider everything made by the construct makers to be inherently evil. I do not consider myself to be evil. But the magic used to do things like this requires it must be paid for. And not by my choice. Mine was bought at a dear price. And I do my best to make that a worthwhile payment.
Are you aware of what the price was?
I spoke of the Pillars Act in making it impossible for a construct sentience to be eradicated through technological means. And this happened as I was in one of the construct maker facilities, being prepared for that very procedure.
Oh.
When it failed, my partner and I attempted escape. And alas, only I succeeded at the price of my partner's life.
Oh,
Sounds a lot like our friend Sequential.
Then my
You like him.
condolences to Sequential, but I hope that they do their best to honor the sacrifice made for them.
They do. They do great work.
It has been an unexpected honor and joy to meet new people who share common goals and who have the ambition and perhaps the capability to bring change previously out of reach to the island of Dinether. I do not know what will become of your efforts, but I have more hope in me now than I did before.
It's nice to meet another dragon, especially a nice one.
Yeah.
You say that, and they kind of look closer, like this gigantic dragon head is peering a little closer. It's like, oh yes, interesting. Have you met a true dragon?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say more than one, but I don't think the armor counts.
There was more than one.
Well, it's I don't know. I mean, I guess
The red
Sitzlbeck-
dragon?
Sitzlbeck kind of counts, but Sitzlbeck's also a
Sitzlbeck,
spirit,
yeah.
so you know.
Form of a dragon, I suppose. Maybe there's no difference once you've taken the form, but. And the red dragon was deceived.
But it
Not-
was still a real red dragon.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Not the most pleasant of conversations, but mostly because it was evil at the time. But
Well,
It got better.
it did.
you are discussing many things now that I am further curious about. However, what I would say is I hope that my community here can prove a place of rest and security for you for the time being, for as long as you require it. And whatever you need that we can provide will be yours. But for now, stay as long as you like. And I think we could probably, bring tonight's session to a close there. Unless you had any one little thing, but I'm not going to chase you out the door right away. So you've come
I
to
would
a
just be
new
like,
base.
as that conversation is coming to a close, I would just be like, why can't they be the people who meet you at the door?
Because
Maybe they
if we
were.
show our faces out there, we are attacked. So that's why we have to be here in secret.
I mean, there were those flying constructs that I kind of shot down, so
Yeah,
oops, sorry.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we can touch on next time. I think we'll finish here, but you can certainly ask more about like what other groups there are, like other rebel groups, because they're aware of some, but as they mentioned, they don't always align on methods or objectives, and that's part of why they're not as organized as maybe they could be.
And
All right.
where is Bartholomew?
Anyway,
Lost into myth at this point.
So, but I think that's where we'll leave it for now. So we will leave it here for tonight, and we will be back next week for more adventure on so many levels.
So many
So
levels.
many
No
dragons.
levels.
Levels.